This is the Moto X. It was released back in August of 2013, so it's now almost 10 years old. How does it hold up in 2024? Well, let's get started with this review. Starting off with the design, we have a carbon fiber back, and honestly, it feels pretty good. Now, I don't know if it's actual carbon fiber, but it definitely has the appearance of it, and it feels really nice. Unfortunately, like most phones in 2013, we do have micro USB, but we also do have a headphone jack, which is really nice to see. And honestly, I do really like this design, like I said. So on the side, we have kind of this sort of plastic build, but it doesn't feel too bad. It honestly feels pretty premium. Moving on to the display, we have a 720p AMOLED display, which funny enough is actually higher quality than most budget smartphones, as most phones like the Galaxy A05 and other phones similar to that have a 720p LCD screen, so this is actually much higher quality. Sure, it's not the brightest in the world. This is actually at full brightness, and yeah, you can see it's not that bright, but what I will say is that the blacks are very black and it's so colorful. I mean, look at this. And the viewing angles are way better than most LCD phones. As you can see, over the side like this, you can totally see it really well, and there's no issues with coloring or anything like that. So yeah, overall, I do really like this display and I really like the design. Moving on to the performance, we got the Snapdragon S4 Pro chip, as well as 2 gigabytes of RAM. Actually, kind of a surprise for 2013, because even though it was somewhat common, 2 gigabytes of RAM for this makes it really fast. What I'm trying to say is that this feels really fast. I mean, this is not 90 hertz or anything in terms of the panel, but it almost feels like it. It's so smooth. It's actually smoother animations than my iPhone 14 Plus, which I am recording on. And by the way, you probably noticed that I do have a skin on my Moto X. This is a MIUI skin, but it's just the icon pack. It isn't like an entire, it isn't the actual software that has changed. So yeah, going through the entire UI, it's super smooth. Opening up apps does take some time, but it's honestly really quick. Obviously, 2 gigabytes of RAM and a Snapdragon S4 Pro is not gonna be anything like an 855 or an 865 or an 8 Gen 2 or whatever. It's not gonna be any of that at all. What I'm trying to say is that for 2013, this is a really speedy phone. Playing games like Geometry Dash are basically perfect. There's no lags, nothing like that. And sometimes that's actually kind of typical with some Android phones that are this old. There's a lot of lag even in very simple games. This is a very simple game, but it's running as smooth as my 14 Plus. I mean, this is impressive. Not all phones can do this. Running actually some simple games like Asphalt Nitro or other simple 3D games, not very complicated, can actually run really well. Running apps also like YouTube or Netflix or other simple apps will actually run really well. Overall, for 2013, I'm really impressed with how well this has held up. Actually, 2013, this is probably one of the most impressive performers in 2024 now. Moving on to the camera performance, we have a 10 megapixel camera on the back, and here's what I'll say. It's kind of similar in performance to something like an iPhone 6 or 5S, but the difference is that there is a lot more noise. Though I will say there is some more detail because it's 10 megapixels instead of 8 on the 6S, on the 6 and the 5S. The HDR can sometimes be okay, but the amount of noise, like I said, and also the amount of grain is really kind of showing here. Taking photos like this where there's some leaves or some nature or something like that, there is a nice amount of background blur, and actually it does look a lot more colorful than something like the iPhone 6 or 5S. However, the amount of noise is kind of significantly more. However, I will say in this photo specifically, the amount of detail is really high, and I overall do like the shot. Honestly, you just need to be in good lighting. So yeah, it'll actually probably perform the same as something like a $50 Android phone that's from this year. So in that case, if you're comparing it to that, it's actually not too bad. We also have alright battery life with the Moto X, however, not amazing. It's nothing crazy. It is 2,200 milliamp hours, and that is not great for any phone in 2024. However, because it is a smaller screen, it will do better. But what I would still say is that it's not going to be amazing. It's probably going to be about 3 hours of screen on time, which is not fantastic. It's kind of similar to something like the first SE or something like that. So my verdict on this very quick review of the Moto X. My thoughts are that honestly, I do really think this phone can hold up in 2024. It can play a lot of games that most phones in 2013 can't play. So it's kind of impressive there. However, you are getting outdated software and an old chip, so that is something to take in mind. Here's what I'll say, and this is kind of similar to what I said about the 6 and the 5S when I reviewed those phones. What I'll say about this is that it is an alright phone for basic tasks. If you're giving this to someone as their first phone, then it's not really going to be a problem. However, if you are even slightly a more heavier user than a basic person, then I would not really recommend this. Anyways, guys, that's basically it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, and I'll see you in the next one.